Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for taking time to be with us this morning. I'm Bonnie Salomon, and with my cohort, co-pilot, coach, dear friend, Michael Semeka, we are unpacking the magic. We are so blessed and excited today to have as our special guest, Amala Foreman, also known as Amy. So you may hear us going back and forth between Amy and Amala. She is such an amazing being in our community. Her wisdom, her innate wisdom, and the joy and lightness that she brings to any conversation, to any event is just so heartwarming and opening to all of us. So Amala, welcome.
Thank you.
We're so delighted to have you with us. And our topic this morning that we're going to delve into is the topic of swirl. Now, that may mean different things to different people, but we're going to dive in with Amala's definition because she is the personification of what I believe is swirl. And Michael will add to that. And I'm going to sit back and enjoy this. I'll tell you why. Swirl is a word that I've never quite been able to get my arms around. And so I may call it by a different name, but I'm curious. And I want to hear what you all have to say. And then I'll put my 2 cents in on swirl. So take it away, Amala.
Okay, wow. So I definitely understand what you're saying because Michael would talk about swirl, and I don't remember when that, gosh, what do we call it? A concept? Like it's not even. It feels too living to be a concept. Um, when that understanding came through for him, he would mention it, and I was in that similar place of, well, this sounds really awesome. I really would like to understand this better so that I can have a relationship with swirl. And I don't really get it. I hear it. I can maybe mentally get a sense of it, but not completely. And I'm on board for this journey because it's there felt like such a gift in the understanding, such a spiritual gift. And so I just went along for the, okay, what's my understanding now, and what's my understanding now, and what's my understanding now. And then in time, it became more of a heart and body understanding. It wasn't just the mind. And what swirl for me, or this version of me, or any versions of me, may be different than what it is for Michael. But I get more of a sense of where to go seeking when Michael talks about, and we can get into that later on, like, okay, there's swirl, and there's swirl within a recursion. And then there's certainly like not swirl. Like I know when I'm there, like, oh, that is not swirlful. That is just like I'm in a place. Like this morning when I suspected that there was a PayPal thing that was just not legit, and I could have gotten really upset about it and gotten into a really recursive, like, oh my gosh, society is against me, oh, woe is me. And that would not have been swirlful. I think that I went into a pretty familiar state. So I would say I probably, went into like swirl within a recursion. I did pretty well the version of me that came up. And there's a difference. Like I was not in a, oh my gosh, mother, father, God is with me. And there's flow, and there's not even me. It's just flow. And so getting back to your question about definition of swirl, it's a state of, I guess, for an indicator, for a primary indicator for me, it's flow. It can be tingles. Mostly it's a feeling of flow through the body. And I was thinking about that this morning. Is it like the whole body or is it the core? I'm not sure, because I'm just like so immersed in the experience of it that I'm not paying attention, like, well, where is this? I would say certainly through the core of my being. And in the earlier stages too, or I should say earlier stages of my relationship with swirl, it would be a visual too. Like, if I could describe it, it would be like maybe this otherworldly snow ice, like bluish color, just like a gentle wind of that kind of visual inner perception. And that's, for the version of me that connects to swirl, or who has, and like, who knows what my relationship will be in the future. And for now, it's mostly a body feeling, and it's joyous, and it's lifting. And yeah, I guess I'll just leave it at that for now.
So let me see if I'm getting what you're transmitting before we hear from Michael. So this version of me showing up today, I'm getting the sense that there's no roadblocks, that it's all the lights are green, you're heading down your highway, it's feeling really good, you got the top down on the car, the wind is blowing through your hair, and all is right with the world. Am I getting that?
Yes. And I would say that even beyond that, like in a most recent experience that felt so swirlful, I was speaking to one of the parents of a student that I tutor, and I felt that what I was telling her wasn't me talking to her. It was just this divine pass through. And so in that sense, there wasn't even a road or a car. It was just
got it. So it's so being in the moment and experiencing the divine in your own way, whatever that is, that it's the divine is dropping down through you. And
yes.
I'm getting goosebumps just talking about that. So, well, thank you, Amala. That was beautiful. Michael, you're the expert on swirl. So let's hear what you have to say.
I'm a midwife of swirl. I don't know about an expert. That's like being an expert of your children. You know what I mean? Like giving birth. There's an extra love that I have for it because I gave birth to it, right? You understand? Like, how you feel about Scott and how Amala feels about Jess and Ryan. There's something about your offspring that you pay attention to, and you're more invested. And, but I don't know if that makes you an expert, but the love is certainly there. So, but yes, I think first off, why swirl? I guess that's where it really starts for me. I mean, like, let me give you a little history. I started out as a catalyst, right? I mean, got my degree in chiropractic and then quickly developed catalyst. Now, why? What was that about? Well, the name is a good hint, to be a catalyst, right? And then I actually have a book that I've written called The Guardian Within. Well, why? Right. So there's the same piece about initiating a reaction and being a facilitator to help people connect to source or to their higher self, right? To greater health, right? You can look at it that way. If you think about it from chiropractic and you think about it getting into the body work and developing catalyst, I've been driven, literally driven, to help people do what they're capable of doing within themselves. And I think that's what the Guardian Within was about, was the idea of the image of having a compass and helping people find this guardian within, this unbelievable source of wisdom, and that everything in life is feedback. So why Swirl? Because it supports everything that I've been about my whole life, which is sort of like making me obsolete and giving people tools that they can do and use on their own. And Swirl is just the it for me regarding like feedback from life. I look at it as like a yes indicator. You know, many people have different yes indicators. You were talking about like goosebumps and stuff like that. And I wrote this down. There's not even me. And so the way I define Swirl, at least right now, is that it's unimpeded energy. You know, it's wide open, it's infinite. You know, you talked about like no roadblocks, but it's like wide open, open road ahead. And I think that is the key, is the infiniteness of it. It's infinite, just spacious. And if you can feel that spaciousness, wow, to me, it's a game of hot and cold. I believe that we are to actually chase that spaciousness. I believe that we're to follow that spaciousness. And I propose that if you were to do it, you would find that when you are following that spaciousness, the results are always pristine. They're always exactly what they possibly can be in the highest form, you know, for you. And so it really helps us get ourselves, any densities we're carrying, any heaviness out of the way, so that this lightness of being can actually take over. And that you interacting with this lightness of being gives you a fighting chance to actually be the wisdom, as if you are just getting a catalyst session, as if you just read The Guardian Within, that you've got this compass. And so for me, it's been always about creating resources that help people. I mean, that's just the bottom line. And I use the word swirl quite often. So it does trigger for people some kind of inquiry or curiosity of like, what the heck is this? What is this? Is it flow? You know, what is swirl? I mean, he talks about swirl all the time. And it's like, I think it's actually in your amazing best interest to have a relationship with swirl. And it starts with the inquiry. Like Amala said, what's this version of swirl right now? And you could feel it. It's a lightness. It's a lightness of being. We talk about step lightly. We talk about let there be breath and let there be peace. And there's so much wisdom that you have access to if you allow swirl to be your guide. And so why not highlight the fact that there is such a thing called swirl if it helps people go there and do that?
So when I first heard the word, I thought about an ice cream swirl, to cool you off on a hot day. I think as I'm getting more and more familiar with swirl, not that one puts contingencies around it, but I believe that for me and whatever version of me can move into swirl, that I really have to be present in the moment. I can't be drifting away to my thoughts. And to know that, as you say, God has my back. And so it is that ability to, as Amala was saying, kind of not even be there yourself, but to just be the energy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And just be, period.
Mm-hmm. I'm in a place right now that I really am having so much fun with synonyms, with words that I use to help define words or to help define energies. I'm really enjoying the family of words or the family of concepts or the family of energy to really help me get it. And so this has been my thing right now. And when you said you might call it something else, you triggered something in me. I want to know, okay, Bonnie, you said that you would call it something else. What? Tell me, please. I want to unpack that, because for me, I want to feel the synonym that you use. And then if I could feel my relationship to whatever word you're using, I can go, well, great. Now let me tell you the difference between your word and swirl, so I can dial you up even more, and why I use swirl and not that word that you use that you haven't shared yet, that I can't wait to hear.
Okay. Touching the face of God.
Okay, there you go. There you go. So when I say swirl, to me, it's not a given that when you touch the face of God, that all of a sudden all the doors have opened up where there's a fresh breeze. Like with touching the face of God, it could just be, here I am, and now I'm touching the face of God, but I'm not really cued into the fact that when I touch the face of God, everything's just like, just bursts open into this, like this infinite world where the doors just opened up before me that I didn't even know were closed. And all of a sudden there's so much more breath and spaciousness and just openness and lightness of being. And I'm feeling all of that. And so for me, the idea of swirl, if it's swirl, it's swirling. And if it's swirling like all these pinwheels in every Cartesian coordinate, X, Y, Z axis, and all combinations thereof, and they're just all, I mean, just wide open. It's the absolute opposite of density. And if I'm just trying to convey that for people so they can have a relationship with swirl, with that openness, with that spaciousness, with this liberation, like for me personally, saying touch the face of God doesn't convey that. It's not assumed that all of those qualities are in there. And yet, swirl for me, if it's swirling, it's unimpeded energy. And that's the reason why I use that term and want to present that term for people to consider, because I want them to be aware of when they're in the presence of unimpeded energy, wide open spaciousness, nothingness, breath, as opposed to touching the face of God could be like, I touch the face of God. You don't know how someone's relationship to that would be. But to me, if touching the face of God brings about swirl, is what you're proposing for me, I'm guessing is what you're proposing for me, then I'd want to say swirl.
I see. I'm because I have been a student and client of yours for some time, I know that you are comfortable with how each of us wants to hold a concept. And
Absolutely.
so I know when I'm in swirl, it may not mean exactly as I'm getting a different feeling as you describe swirl. And I feel like there are probably other words that I would use as well, but I'm happy to settle with swirl and learn more about it and touch it in different ways. So I guess that's my take. Amala,
Yes, may I make an offering?
please.
I remember years ago when when things first started clicking in terms of developing a relationship with swirl. I had just exited the public school system, teaching in public school system. And I remember sitting in my car receiving a text from one of the supervisors offering me a temporary job back in the school system. And there were lots of feelings going on, and it was tempting and it was repulsive. It was all those things. And I remember just sitting there physically, putting in one hand the idea of, going back. And in another hand, the idea of just continuing on my current path, which was to be opening private tutoring set practice. And I considered it in terms of Swirl. It just came through me to do that, to consider which would be more swirlful. Because when it came in, it felt very stressful to have that offering. It's like, oh my gosh, I thought I was out. Here this is. And then when I put it in terms of considering Swirl, for me, then it was very visual. And it was just so much more swirlful to continue on the path that I was going on in terms of my private practice. And I just remember that as perhaps maybe a pivot point, something like that was important in my practical journey with Swirl. You know, just taking two situations and assessing them in terms of swirl or potential swirl.
So let me ask this question. Is Swirl something that you can just pull out of the air?
What? I wish, yes. I mean,
So
there,
what brings you to Swirl, Amala?
oh gosh. Well, I would say what's coming in is the first thing is getting out of my own way. There can be like really stuck recursive versions of me that are in overwhelm and, you know, full of her own Michigassen idiosyncrasies where Swirl is just not accessible. It's like, I don't even know if I can consider Swirl in that state. I can't even consider another archetype at that moment until I do. And then then that's like, I have a choice here. And Swirl is not the first step, unless there's just a truly poetic blip where where God just takes me to another state and it's very swirlful. And that's not the usual. It's it's a process. It can be a process. So what was your question?
How do you get to Swirl?
How do you get to Swirl? I would say that, if there were a set of steps, the first step would be to remember to get out of your own way.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I think that's great. That's great advice, no matter what version it is of you, no matter where you are. Yeah.
And I think what I would say, maybe step 0 in honor of you, because I remember you brought that to the succession 7, is to pause, to stop, to have that peace before even the first step, which is to get out of your own ways. Just stop. Stop.
I think one has to breathe, really, as you're talking about, pause and breathe. And I think that's a great way to begin to get out of your own way.
Yes.
So, Michael, I know you're ready to go.
Well, I was just talking before about how much I'm really loving the synonyms. And for me, Swirl is firmly into step 2 of the succession 7. We talk about stopping in mindfulness, and then ease. If it's not easy, you're not doing it right. And I love ease, peace, swirl, freedom, fun, joy, lightness. I think that all of these energies really represent step 2. And I think that swirl is just another word to help you be accountable to, are you feeling light or are you feeling dense? Are you feeling you? Are you feeling liberated from you? Is there a sense of like, I can stop so I can let time have its way with me, and another version of me can emerge but I have to give it space. I have to give it swirl. It needs some breathing room, SS breathing room. So to me, I look at all the synonyms of ease, like, right, of let it be easy, and peace and breath and lightness. And of course, swirl is there. I mean, that's just where it's at for me. So it's just a support system for peace. Let there be peace on earth. Let there be ease. I mean, to me, it just anything that you can do to support peace and ease, grace and dignity, you know, why not? Why not swirl?
I was just thinking about that in terms of when you find yourself in the middle of a situation that is stressful or overwhelming or very challenging, and maybe a lot of people around. It takes practice to be able to, inside yourself, just pause, just stop, and take a breath. I happen to be watching some of the hearings on television that are going on at the present time. And there was a judge on there who spoke so slowly. I was listening on the radio, and he would pause ever so, not always so briefly, and just kind of breathe into what he was going to say. And I thought, this is pretty amazing that he was pausing, he was choosing how he was going to present what he was going to present. And you kind of hung on every word, waiting for him to make the next statement. And I think that was a lesson in how to pause in the middle of chaos, to regain your center, if you will, and even find the swirl, So I just throw that out as an example. It's a concept unique to each person, I think. And I'd be curious to just randomly ask people, define swirl, and ask them, are there any circumstances under which they can easily find the swirl? For some people, it might be a meditation, it might be in prayer, it might be being with family, although that can sometimes be a challenge. But yeah, I think that we have a myriad of opportunities to find ways to drop into swirl in the middle of whatever.
Sorry.
No,
I was going to say the one way that I know, which doesn't include other people, is, like Amala said, I think it's like soapboxes are for stepping off, not for stepping on. I think when you get off a soapbox, it feels absolutely amazing. It's like acceptance and forgiveness and all of these words that bring about such an amazing natural consequence that feels awful lot like swirl. It feels like unimpeded energy. It feels like a fresh breeze in the middle of a field when you can just see forever. And it's delightful. And that's something that we have access to if we practice. And swirl swirls, and swirl is swirling all around us. And it's a question of, is it a question of us letting it in, or us diving in to swirl, like getting off the soapbox, getting off the sense of self, the righteousness, everything that we're holding on to, and just letting life have it, and being in the TBR of it all, the to be revealed, and just giving yourself permission to just take that pause, but enjoy the swirl, enjoy life's intelligence and life's wisdom at work while you're doing nothing but enjoying the benefit of having gotten off it.
Go ahead, Amala.
I remember, like, early on in the exploration of swirl, Michael would say that he was a swirl seeker. I believe that's what you would say. And today you talked about chasing swirl. And I love that. I love that, remembering that it can be an active state, like dynamic peace, right? That you can actively be in the explore and discovery of swirl, and having that be the road path of your day, the roadway.
I got to share because I wrote this down in case you were going to go for a while and I was going to forget. I already said swirl swirls, but swirl is, there's always swirl. And it's almost like there was that old saying, like, if you and God aren't close, who moved? You know, you know what I'm saying? So it's like the chasing of swirl is like just going there wherever it is. And why would you care where it is if you have access to it? You're going to be like, no, I'm not going there. I want to go here. I'm not going over there. I want to go over there. And it's like, well, you can do that, or you can go into swirl. And it reminds me of that saying, you know, you could be at peace or you could be right. I mean, you know, it depends. And if swirl is going to bring you peace, then right takes on a whole new face, you know?
If you identify a version of yourself that is in swirl, if you have experienced that, what we've been talking about, and you know that there exists within you this version, why not just call up that version?
You can, absolutely can. That's why, that's beautiful. That's a synonym to swirl. That's like ease. You just do it. You're exactly into my intoxication right now. If I had a version and his name was Barry, AKA the inner swirlful dude who's just so delightful, and I can call on him to bring in swirl, then absolutely. But at least the name swirl doesn't distract you from it. It adds clarity. It helps you understand who Barry is. He is swirlful, man. And this is what it means to touch the face of God. It is swirlful. And so it doesn't matter to me whether you call it Barry, the face of God, peace, or ease. The bottom line is it's swirlful. And now you know what that means. That holds such a standard for you to be able to open to swirl, to jump in and dance with swirl, and to really hold yourself accountable to, am I or am I not? I don't know. Are you experiencing swirl or not? Oh, I don't know. I'm still thinking. I don't know. Oh, you're probably not feeling swirl. What if you weren't thinking right now?
I used to call it peak experience.
There you
It was
go.
something I learned a long time ago about when you're in the present moment and you're so fully there and so immersed in whatever is going on. That is a peak moment in your life. And I think what you're saying about swirl goes beyond peak moments. It's something ethereal, really. Can't see it, can't touch it, maybe.
Well, borrowing your line, if somebody said that swirl is a peak experience, I would certainly let them have it. You know, for me, I have felt moments where I have felt connected to everything. And you never think you're ever going to leave that place, because once you're in such a state, it's beyond your wildest dreams that you would ever disengage or find yourself unplugged from that place, that peak experience. But I can promise you, when you're in a peak experience, swirl is there.
Yeah, you feel like you will be pulled kicking and screaming from that
Absolutely.
Eden-esque enjoyment of life. Amala, you look like you're primed and ready to go. What's on your mind?
Well, just when you mentioned like the version that had easy access to swirl, what came through in the consideration was that the naming of it seems to limit it. And swirl is the spaciousness that creates the greater access to swirl.
I love that.
Me too. Me too. Because I felt it when I said Barry. It didn't feel the same.
Yeah. Yeah. That's lovely. So anything else feeling like it's wanting to be said about Swirl and this?
I love it. How about that? I love it. I thank you, Swirl, for being. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to get to know you better. And thank you for being so tenaciously awesome and always there and just waiting for me to be ready when it's my time.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Amala, anything that is moving for you at the moment?
Not beyond what has already been spoken.
This has been such a meaningful time with the two of you, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity to explore these ideas. And maybe, I know it certainly is helping me to expand who I am into greater and greater places. I hope that it is doing the same for our audience. I feel that the things that we are discussing can make life better, make it more enjoyable, more swirlful, if you will. And I thank you both. Michael, thank you for the concepts that you have shared and for your partnership in this endeavor. Amala, it's always a joy to be with you. I love your perspectives. I love how you move with the language, and we feel your lightness of being.
Flitting. She flits.
She flits. Yes, she does. And she does it so beautifully. So thank you again. We look forward to seeing all of you very soon. And we're hoping that you can unpack your own magic. Many blessings.